925 KTRS. We're talking with Scott Sherman about the gay marriage Supreme Court hearings next week, but not too far from everyone's news is the fact that the Ellisville City Council has pushed back the impeachment of Mayor Adam Paul to April 1st. Maybe it's an April Fool's joke. We'll have to wait and see. But the election is April 2nd. So the new council is going to be seated April 2nd. But before they do that, they're going to try and impeach the current mayor. So we'll have more on that in the days coming up to the election. But let's get back to Scott Sherman. All right, Scott Sherman. So when last we left you, you explained the Prop 8 from California.
Right. That's
one of the things
case.
They're going to be arguing.
That'll be Tuesday.
Okay.
All day Tuesday, they will be arguing on the Prop 8 constitutionality.
Okay.
So
any big names defending Prop 8 that we should know about?
No. You're going to have the same people that were proposing or promoting Prop 8 that got it passed. They're stuck arguing this on behalf of Prop 8.
What's the analysis? What are the pros and cons? Do you think 5-4? It's going to be 9-0, 8-1. What's the lineup looking like?
I'm always wrong about this, but here we go. I look back at a case called Lawrence v. Texas from about 10 years ago that was 6-3.
Was that the sodomy case?
That was the sodomy case that outlawed these homosexual sodomy laws as an issue of privacy. Mm-hmm. And it was Justice Kennedy that wrote that opinion. He's still there. So who is going to be on the side of not sort of going with Lawrence v. Texas in privacy?
It was Scalia, Thomas, and
Alito.
Okay.
I'm thinking this is going to be 6-3 with Roberts going with the majority, that the Prop 8 will be unconstitutional, both as not raising to the level of the equal protection. I think that homosexuality is going to get bumped up into the same gender category. That's right. One. And two, as a fundamental right of marriage, this is going to be applied universally to all people, whether it's same-sex marriage or regular,
right.
intersex
right.
marriage.
Let the gays be as miserable as the heterosexuals.
Come on aboard. They're going to be sorry, but they're going to have their rights.
Okay. Now, also with this, the Defense of Marriage Act, which was a federal law signed by then Bill Clinton.
That is true. 1993, President Clinton signs this. Essentially, this was a stopgap to prevent there are now 9 states that have gay marriage from the other states being forced to recognize it. It's called the Full Faith and Credit Act of the United States Constitution. So it's like this. If you have a driver's license from, say, New York,
right.
You're from New York,
mm-hmm.
and you come to Missouri and you give them a driver's license as your ID, then they say, no, we're not going to take that because you're from New York.
Right.
Well, Full Faith and Credit kind of works that way, where if you got a valid this in New York, it's valid in Missouri.
So if you get married in New York, it's valid in Missouri.
Yes, but not with the Defense of Marriage Act. If you get gay married in, say, Vermont or Washington State,
right.
They're not going to recognize it in Missouri or Alabama or a host of the other 41 some odd states that don't have it. So this was designed to prevent gay marriage from sweeping across the country.
Right.
And so now the challenge is this. The feds don't have the right to define marriage between only a man and a woman on the same sorts of grounds that they're going to challenge Prop 8. So you're going to see equal protection. You're going to see fundamental constitutional right under the Due Process Clause. You're going to see the same arguments, but this is going to then be a ban on these limitations for federal benefits and for full faith and credit.
Right, because right now gays cannot get federal benefits. If you're a federal worker and you're married to a gay man, you can't get the benefit.
And you see it in the Windsor case that came out of 2 U.S. attorneys out of the same office in California couldn't get the death benefits.
Well, that's the same thing here in
and
Missouri.
The same thing here
with that trooper.
When you saw the state trooper, that he couldn't get that. So if DOMA is struck down and if Perry goes the way that I think it's going to go, this Windsor case is also going to go that way too. You're going to see a movement towards same-sex benefits and same-sex marriage.
Which means that if both of these are struck down, which you believe they are.
I think so.
Okay. Then that means somebody who's gay married in Vermont moves to Missouri. Missouri must recognize them as a legally married couple.
Yep. And
just like first cousins who were married in, and I'm picking a state because I know there's like
just
20 of
Arkansas.
them. Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And Missouri, I believe, outlaws first cousin marriages. They would still then have to recognize first cousin marriages, even though it's illegal to marry your first cousin here in Missouri.
Yes, and all these 30-some-odd states that have constitutional amendments, it's not just California, defining marriages between a man and a woman, those will all be unconstitutional too, including Missouri's. So you're going to have the gay marriage bans are going to be illegal, and the full faith and credit block from DOMA is going to be unconstitutional. And as a side note, there's already been 8 circuits lower than the U.S. Supreme Court that have held DOMA to be unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause.
President Clinton has said he thinks it should be struck down.
Yep, and Secretary of State Clinton just, what a surprise, came out in support of it. Now, you have a poll because the trend, we've talked about it before, there was a prediction that would you like to
John Hamm and I both
would you like to share it with the audience, sir, about gay marriage, that the popularity of it has been moving much quicker than even you and I
it's getting bigger.
predicted. 60% now of people support gay marriage, and it's 80% amongst people under 30.
We have to go to a break, but I think it was Kansas. Maybe it was Oklahoma. First of all, I don't understand people they're such up in arms over gay marriage, but they're not up in arms over a man having a sex change and then marrying another man. Right? So you could have a sex change. This goes on all the time.
That's right.
So somebody's Bob, all of a sudden he becomes Wilma, and then they marries the man. Nobody has a problem with that. So I want to say Texas. I'm sorry. I want to say Oklahoma. Maybe it was Kansas. It was one of those. They passed a law, and I'm going to get this wrong, but they passed a law that said even if you change your gender, your original gender is what will take, right?
Like it's like your original DNA.
Right. So even if you change your sex years later, the state's not going to recognize. We're only going to recognize the sex you were born as. Okay? So I got it wrong, but somehow they somehow basically endorsed gay marriage.
Well, here's
by
the
accident.
Thing. If they're endorsing gay marriage,
I got that wrong.
This is where I go after the fake conservatives, the one that they don't want government involved in their lives until they find something that they want government to be involved in that has nothing to do with them.
Right.
So they want government when they need government. Just like fake liberals want government until they don't like what it is. So this is if these things go the way I'm hoping they go and think they'll go, this is a victory for freedom.
This is absolutely. This is a victory for smaller government. This is a victory for individual personal freedoms.
And there's an article in the New York Times.
And you think the Tea Parties would parade and dance around.
And this may actually let Republicans off the hook for what has been a devastating last 8 years where they look like Neanderthals.
It's a great point.
And who is the voice of reason in the Republican Party on this issue? Your buddy, Dick Cheney.
First of all, I love Dick Cheney. Second of all, it's a great point. It gets the Republicans off when asked, are you for gay marriage? They say, that's settled law. Move on to the real issues.
It's much like what happened in the 1960s with all of the civil rights stuff.
That's Scott Sherman. We'll come back, talk more with him. 9:35, Big 550 KTRS.
Let's take this chance to get a check of traffic with Ed Smarin at the Golden Oak Lending Traffic Center. Ed?
Had a couple earlier problems, but looks like everything's cleared up. We're moving along normally.